and I made that statement, Brother Johnson, somebody in the audience after came and said, Rev, I heard you say the name of God is not mentioned in this book. Is that true? I said, did I say that? He said, yes, you did. I said, well, why don't you read it and tell me? Came back the next week, Rev, you know you're right.
Wow.
The name of God may not be in the book, but the handiwork of God is all through the book. You read that book, you're going to read about God in that book and how he works. But that's why I encourage folks to read. I made a statement that somebody just said, wait, I can't believe that. Read it. It's in black and white. So they came back and told me, he said, Rev, you know, you're right, Chad. I said, thank you. I'm glad, you know, what happened is I'm glad you read it. Amen. The time of this is about 474 BC, and the place is called Shushan. We have 3 outlines in the book. Learning of a deadly threat, Ester 4:6-9. Number 2, wrestling with personal responsibility, Ester 4:10-17. And then receiving the king's favor, Ester 5:1-2. Let me read this introductory before we get into it. Genocide, that's mass killing of people, has become one of the baleful realities of the 20th and 21st centuries. It's ironic, though, there are folk today that still refuse to accept that there was a Holocaust. They refuse to believe that right now black folk being killed. Not just by the police, but by ourselves. David Duke said one day, leave them alone. They're going to kill each other. We're making David Duke a prophet. Everyone is aware of the most infamous example, the Nazi extermination of Jews and other groups during the Second World War. You know what's ironic about that? Adolf Hitler talked about the supreme race. 6'2", blonde hair, blue eyes. The last picture I saw of Adolf Hitler, he was about 5'9", with brown hair, brown eyes. Oh, wait. The master race. So he called it. So he was not even in the master race himself. That was not the first in the long line of massacres. During the First World War, Armenians living in Turkish-held regions suffered catastrophic losses. Imperial Japan sent many to the slaughter in the 1930s and 40s. That's not long ago. Estimates still vary regarding the millions put to death in the Soviet Union under Stalin. A lot of Jews was also killed. Book of Esther recounts an early example of state-sponsored genocide that thankfully was thwarted because of the bravery and the faith of 2 individuals. A diabolically planned and decreed massacre of Jewish people across the Persian Empire never took place. God is able. 4 chapter 6 verse. So Hatash went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasury for the Jews to destroy. Also, he gave the copy of the writing of the decree that was given as Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, to change her, that she should go unto the king, make supplication unto him, and to make request before him for the people. Hatash came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Let's fast forward. I'm going to read this and then I will talk about it, okay? All the king's servants, people of the province, of the king's province, to do know, whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come into the court, the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law. He is to put him to death. Y'all remember what Esther goes before the king? Y'all remember that? Except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. He told to Mordecai Esther's words. Mordecai commanded to answer Esther. Look at this. Think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall there enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. Who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer. Go, gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat or drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. Now it come to pass on the 3rd day that Esther put on her royal apparel, stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house, and the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of the house. And it was so, when the king saw the queen standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. The king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter. Somebody needs to ask the question, how we got in this mess? Hey, man, how in the world did we get in such a mess? Well, I'm glad you inquired. And I quickly tried to break this down. I won't get it all. But if we look back, the book of Esther, I thought about something. When Nebuchadnezzar and his hurricane, when Jehoiachin was the king of Judah, took all them folk captive, brought them back to Babylon. But times have changed. Progression has been made. And right now the king is called Ahasuerus. And their Jews had been allowed to go back home. Okay, now go back home to Jerusalem. They can go back to worshiping God like they always did in the temple. But I want to tell you something. Sometimes in life we get comfortable where we at. Oh, ain't God good? We get comfortable where we're at. We don't look to move. We don't look to do better. We're just comfortable there. So some of the Jews decided we're all right where we at. We're not going anywhere. We're going to stay right here. One of those Jews was Mordecai. Now Mordecai, and it's ironic, the Bible never says that Mordecai had any children. But he raised Esther. Who was Esther? Esther was his uncle's daughter. But evidently the uncle and the aunt had died. She had no parents. So he took her in as his own child. How many know when you do the right thing, God will make a way for you. Amen. So now she's living, well, actually, as her first cousin. And he's treating her as a father and a daughter. But what happened was she grew, and according to the Bible, Esther was a fair and a beautiful woman. In other words, she was not only good looking, but she was fine too. Oh, the Bible says she was fair and good and beautiful. But now, on the flip side, King Ahasuerus, I read something that said during this time he had just had a big military loss to the Greeks. But sometimes in life, you lose to win. Sometimes you lose to gain. So he had this great empire, but he called together the leading folk from that empire. And he had a big gala, probably 100 and, I don't know if it's not 60 days. After that, he had a 7-day feast. He had all the who's who of Babylon there. Everybody was doing their own thing. And I read where folk was not compelled to drink. Amen. You know when you go somewhere, you not compelled. But boy, they started drinking. Miss Carol, the oil was flowing, and you got some folk got out of their head, including the king. But after 7 days, the king thought about it. Man, I got a good looking wife. It's time I show this woman off. Let the world see what I got. So he got his chambermaids, the one that was working with the queen, and told him, go tell the queen to make an appearance dictated by the king. And let me tell you something. One thing about them fellas, you didn't tell the king no. But Vashti, the queen, can I use my imagination along with what's written? I can just imagine the queen saying, he out of his mind. You got all them old drunk jokers left. All of them in the oil. God knows what they've been doing. And he want me to come over there. He got to be kidding me. So she refused to go. How many know there's consequences when you refuse to do some things? When they got to the king got all angry. The Bible called it he was wroth. That means he was highly angry. The Bible let us know that the king was upset and everybody could see he was upset. So he called for the wise men. And he asked them, say, look, what do you do with a woman that disobeyed you? Ladies, y'all better hear this. I said, what do you do when that woman won't listen to you? They came together and they said it like this. They wasn't just thinking about the king, the rule, they were thinking about themselves. You know what they told him? Say, oh, king, live forever. But king, we got a problem here. Say, if she refused to obey you, if we go home, then women gonna hear about that. And them women gonna want to take over. So king, what you need to do, you need to move her from being the queen. It wasn't just thinking about him. They were thinking about at home. Can I share this with you? We had the one of the first women to become superintendent of the area I was in. Fellow wasn't there when it happened. When he came back the next day and he heard that a woman was over the area, he flipped out. And his statement was, I go home, they got a woman telling me what to do. Now I come to work, they got a woman telling me what to do. What do you make of it? I said, sound like you need all the help you can get. If everybody got to tell you what to do, somebody got a problem and look like you. So now they move her from being the queen. So now there is a vacancy. What do we do to replace her? The king said, I want you to search the kingdom. I want you to find the most beautiful, fairest looking virgins. I want you to bring them here, provide everything they need, and I'm going to make a choice as to who the queen would be. But how many know God was in this plan? The Bible says that Esther found favor in the sight of everybody she came in contact with. But Mordecai told Esther, Esther, what you ought not do is tell them that you're a Jew. Y'all know you got them folk play like to somebody else. Said, don't tell them your nationality. Fast forward, Esther was chosen as the next queen. But around that same time, there was a fellow in the kingdom called Haman. I read 3 names for Haman. One was Haman, the other one was Haman the Agagite, and Esther called him Evil Haman. Can I have a witness? But when I look at it, Haman had this thing about the Jews. And he hated the Jews because of one man called Mordecai. You see, when he was promoted, he got the big head. He thought he was this, that, and some of that. Every time he passed, people was bowing down. Mordecai was sitting there, upset that Mordecai wouldn't bow down to him. I believe Mordecai remembered the words of the Lord. Thou shalt bow down to no other God. Thou shalt have no other God before me. Bow down to nothing under the heaven and the earth. Mordecai would not bow. When I tell you, the more every time he saw Mordecai, Haman got upset. But can I tell you, church, when God has a work for you, you're going to do it because he's making a way for you to do it. Now, Haman had got to be a big man. Haman went to the king, told the king, said, King, look, you got some people scattered out in all the province. They don't mean you no good. We need to get rid of them. I tell you what, king, sign a decree, let me do it, and I'll put some money in the treasury to pay for it. In other words, you just sign and I'm going to take care of it. I believe somebody said the sum of money was like 375 tons of silver. That's a lot of silver. But the Bible records that the word came and Mordecai heard about the word that was spoken. The decree was written and he used the ring to certify it. But you see, God always got a ram in the bush.
Oh, yeah.
But you see, somebody forgot previously, and I kind of left this out to go back to it. Mordecai was sitting at the gate. While he was sitting at the gate, he overheard 2 fellows. And the 2 fellows said, you know what, we tired of the king. Sick of the king. Time to get rid of the king. So they hatched the plot to kill the king. But my Bible tells me that Mordecai sent word to Esther, told them about the plans of these two fellows. King investigated, found it to be true, and he hanged them two fellows. And what he did, he wrote it in the archives, wrote it in the chronicles, had it down in the historical ledgers. I want to tell you, God is able to take care of things. But when he came to Esther and told Esther, say, Esther, you got to do something about this. Esther said, you know, I might be the queen, but the king got to call for you. You see, we're talking about heroes and heroines in the Bible. But most heroes and heroines in the Bible were reluctant. Amen. Let's look at it. All the heroes we talk about before Esther was reluctant. And Esther was no different. She said, you know what? You just can't walk in on the king and talk to the king. The king got to call you. If you show up, the king got to raise his scepter. If you don't raise the scepter and you're too close, to kill you. And she was looking at it like this. I might be the queen, but it's been 30 days since the king called for me. I don't know, can I use this? I don't know if the king is not pleased with me. I don't know what the problem is, but the king haven't called for me in 30 days. But my Bible records Mordecai sent her a message. Say, Esther, do you know that maybe you was placed here for a time like this? Anybody remember what Joseph told his brothers? 50th chapter of the book of Genesis. Yeah, what you meant for bad, God meant it for good to save many people. Say, I want to tell you, Esther, you may get away right now. The Jews may be killed, but I want to tell you, God is able. If you don't do it, God will use somebody else. God will deliver. Esther told him, say, I tell you what, I know it's a problem, and here's the part I really like. Esther said, I want you to go, you and all the people. I want you to fast for 3 days, both day and night. But I always say this, when you fast, you pray. Ain't God good? Say fast for 3 days, 3 nights. We're going to do the same thing. Bible records after 3 days of fasting, Esther walked up to where the king was sitting. Hadn't been called, could have been killed. But my Bible records that the king raised his scepter. Because what Esther said, I'm going to go before the king, and if I perish, I perish. In other words, I'd rather die doing what thus said the Lord than to live. I believe somebody said to live is Christ, to die is gain. Somebody asked, what does all of that mean? To live is Christ, mean you need to speak what does say the Lord. To die is gain, mean no longer in the troubles of this world, going home to be with the Lord. But I want to tell you, Esther said, if I perish, I perish. Esther walked in, king raised his scepter, and asked the question, what is it that you want? To be continued. All right? To be continued shortly. All right? We're going to complete this in a little while. Okay? Amen. 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 Boy, God is good, isn't he?